Yes. And they were able, for the first time, they were able for the first time to come up with a white paper, which had generated. Oh, beautiful! All right here. Good. Yes. So they were able to put this for the first time. This was a historic document, and because as much as we are here in the Bronx, people didn't know. They only knew one cab driver and one dishwasher. Until this paper came out, they said, wait a minute. So, and then, we're excited about it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
You guys can go through it. So this way you know what you're talking about. So, from there, the African community in the Bronx was in the limelight. And people had the starting point to know where the Africans are from the white paper, and we're excited about that. And because of it, then the service delivery became a lot easier because those who provide services would know the quantity and the quality. And so we are. So Imam,
Ibrahim.
You can get a chair. Imam can sit on the floor anyway.
Imam, you sit here, come on.
Yeah, the chair is there, right? You can get
Imam,
it.
please.
Here, let me bring this chair.
Yeah.
Wait, here?
Yeah, you can hear.
So it's all right. I sit
So you guys forgive us, there will be a lot of interruptions because they're bringing food and whatever, let them do their thing, but just concentrate on the speakers, so because it's a strange creature, you don't have them all the time. So, because of that, the African community was truly blessed because now the politicians, law enforcement, and even the hospitals knew more about the Africans and their needs and where they are and how to reach out to them. So I want you to give them a hand because it's a great service. Okay, great. Now today, what we're going to be doing is, in light of the Donald Trumps of the world, and not to mention crucified, so they decided that, they wanted to know what is happening in the Muslim community and are there increased bias attacks or are there anything that we can talk about and find solutions, common ground. And then they decided that we're going to have this forum, and that is what brought us here. And I can tell you that, we have among the top, Muslim leaders who know what they're talking about, here today. These are highly professional, I know them all, highly professional, highly qualified, and highly valued in the Muslim community. So I think whatever you hear, you can take it to the bank because it is from a well-researched information, not a cab driver who doesn't know what the heck is going on. So these are, Iman is a lawyer, and so with that, I just want to introduce you to the panelists, and I think we perhaps maybe ask Iman to open up as the first speaker, and then take it from there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Right, I'm a little sick, so I'm usually really loud, but not today. So I just really want to thank Fordham University for all the amazing work you guys have been doing, and to Peace December for hosting this incredible forum, and to the New York Political Coalition, Aldo, for everything, and all the other organizers, and to all of you for coming out on a sunny Friday afternoon to hear about Islamophobia. Really exciting topic. So, as Shiv said, I'm an attorney by background. I'm also the Director of Community Partnerships at the Interfaith Center in New York. I do organizing, advocacy work that tackles Islamophobia, among other things. We also work to tackle police brutality, to tackle xenophobia against migrants and immigrants and undocumented people. So, you're yawning already? I mean, just started. So, we do a whole host of things. And here's what I'll say about Islamophobia. I see Islamophobia as no different than any other kind of bigotry or xenophobia. It's just a different manifestation of it. And it's always existed. There's always been this sort of Orientalist view of the Muslim or the other. For people who don't know what Orientalism is, it's a theoretical, wonderful body of... It comes from the book Orientalism, which was written by Edward Said, and it's a really famous, wonderful theory that talks about the otherizing of the East and Muslims, and starts with Latin and all these other things. And I think that it's true that today it's different. It's worse than it's ever been, probably because of the war on terror, and because of the failed policies. We have to understand that Islamophobia is not just the words and the rhetoric. It's the undergird of Islamophobia is there's a policy, there's an industry, there's an economic infrastructure that drives it, and it's a really pernicious, ugly thing that is growing to become something that has to be tackled. And unfortunately, this is more of a self-criticism than anything else. As a Muslim person and living in America, born here, I feel that the Muslim community is just not really as organized as it could be, and needs to really respond more effectively. And that's the only way that it's going to dismantle this Islamophobic machine, which is, like I said, it's not just rhetoric coming from Donald Trump. It's a concerted political economic machinery from the Clarion Project that we've all heard about and others. So it's a really it's a terrible time. So that's sort of a little bit about the background of Islamophobia. It sort of spiked after the war on terror. Now it's worse because it's an easy target. We're easy targets. Muslims aren't organized, so it's completely okay to say things against us because we don't really say anything in response. Because that's how it is. If you're an unorganized group, it's perfectly acceptable to go after them because there's no political consequence. Whereas if Donald Trump went after Jewish brothers and sisters, for example, who are very organized, and I know this because I work at the Interfaith Center, they have a very well-oiled machine that has litigation, that has advocacy, that has media reactions that don't tolerate that kind of thing. So, I think my work at the Interfaith Center is compelling because it sort of teaches us that this is something that's happened throughout history, and we can learn from previous generations how to fight back. And I think, we can be optimistic in the sense that in this historical moment, while it's sad that this is all happening, there's lots of hate crimes against Muslims that are not reported, by the way. I had a meeting with Bratton on Friday, and he said that, we're really confused. You Muslims, we know that there's hate crimes, but how come you don't report them? Because Muslims are afraid to report hate crimes because of surveillance and because of the history of problems between the NYPD, and also because they're immigrants and because they come from countries where that's just not done. So even though all the sad things that are happening with hate crimes and everything else, I think in the long run, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to learn from our Jewish brothers and sisters, our Irish brothers and sisters, our Italian brothers and sisters who've had similar experiences in the past, and we'll be able to hopefully push back and not allow this to happen. But in this moment right now, it's a pretty sad situation. So that's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Not you, the other one. Let's just bring balance a little bit. We have a sister who represents the other side of the coin. And a little background. I don't know how many of you would know Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf. Raise your hand if you know Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf. Okay.
Ground Zero Mosque.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. How many of you heard of Ground Zero Mosque?
Yes.
Okay, good. The Imam that was profiled is Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf, one of the best human beings, not just Muslims, best human beings that lives in U.S. As a matter of fact, he was the Obama's Middle Eastern envoy to the Arab world. So he is as fair and balanced as you can find, religious aside. Anyway, in light of the level of extremism and the recruitment and the radicalization, him and his wife took upon it to find internal solution, meaning Muslim solution. If it's a Muslim problem, we find Muslim solution, and they travel around the world, the Muslim world as well as non-Muslim world. and they were able to gather all the initial counter-narrative packages. And they came up with the best from Singapore, and that has now been packaged to pretty much refute anything that ICE or any ICE-like extremism use to entice young kids. They have the rebuttal for it. And then, I've seen it. I participated in the formulation of it. I know how powerful it is, and they're working directly with law enforcement, and they're working directly, with government. So she's here. Daisy couldn't make it. Daisy can't, the wife of Imam, but she's here as good as Daisy. So you take it.
Thank you, Sheikh Musa. Although really I don't have to speak anymore because I think Sheikh Musa covered it. Mashallah. So my name's Susan Smith, and I work with WISE. And as Sheikh Musa said, WISE, and that stands for the Women's Islamic Initiative in Spirituality and Equality, which is part of the ASMA organization with Imam Abdurraouf and Daisy Khan, which is the American Society for Muslim Advancement. They've been around for decades, and they are very much interfaith peace builders, and for a long time they have been in the New York City area and globally working for the Muslim voice to be included as part of the American fabric. And particularly when 9/11 occurred and the initiative was to build an Islamic Community Center, the idea was to show the true face of Islam. Not make an affront or put in people's face, Muslims in the face of 9/11, but more to show that we are part and parcel of the American fabric. So as everyone knows, we are living now in very difficult times. How many of you are Muslim in this group? Okay. And so about half of the group is Muslim. The times now that we are living in are more difficult than right after 9/11. It has come a point for the last 15, 16 years that Islamophobia has grown and developed to such an extent that it is now actually the political tender of the Republican Party candidates in particular for running for office. So to bring up issues such as surveilling all Muslim neighborhoods, not allowing Muslim immigrants, if something like this were said about any other ethnic group, whether it be Jewish or, well, not any other ethnic group, actually, with the Republican candidates, actually, they have a lot of bandwidth to retract that. But it is clearly unethical and illegal for the things that are being said and floated by Republican candidates at this time. So in the face of this, what has happened is that the Muslim community finds itself in an extremely difficult situation. And Iman has alluded to the fact that the Muslim community has not yet unified and risen up to this challenge. Well, Imam Faisal and Sister Daisy, and particular Sister Daisy, has, under the Women's Islamic and Spiritual, Women's Initiative in Spirituality and Equality, WISE is, for the past year, working on a great campaign. And it's about to be unveiled. And what this campaign does is, on one hand, it tackles Islamophobia. And what Islamophobes do is they, first of all, they point to terror and terrorists, and then they generalize it to the Muslim community, and then they also take our scriptures and make them not peaceful, which the true Islam is very peaceful. So on the one hand, we're facing Islamophobia and our communities being marginalized, and on the other hand, we do have Muslim extremists who have co-opted our religion, distorted it, and most of these extremists actually all of them are coming from places where there is war in the Middle East, places like Iraq, where more than 2 million Iraqis have been killed because of a military campaign led by the United States government. And then Al-Qaeda became a marriage of grew out of the Iraqi National Guard of Saddam Hussein with Islamic extremists, and then we had the Islamic State emerge out of that. So what we have is a situation where a war on terror has actually caused a feedback loop where continued military bombardment of the Middle East for about 30 years now has led to a situation where people of a very marginalized few have become extremists. And so, unfortunately, this then is exploited by the media, exploited by Islamophobes. So Muslims have a huge challenge. First and foremost, we need to reclaim Islam from those people who are like ISIS, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, who are using Islam in a negative way. And what Daisy Khan has done with WISE, the Women's Islamic Initiative with the Spirituality and Equality, is she has broken down their tactics, their strategies, and bit by bit, and over the course of a year, and with 55 scholars' assistance, actually broken down their propaganda and debunked it, and then has written in a 200-page community guide and toolkit what is first and foremost the true Islam, how we can explain it to our friends and allies of different faiths, how we in our Muslim communities led by our imams can integrate it into our schools, our teachings, our families, so that the simple average Muslim is able to speak about Islam in a way that is effective. Because unfortunately, you know, when hit over the head by the media and Islamophobic rhetoric, it's very difficult. So we invite the Muslim community to join this initiative. It's going to be rolled out right after Ramadan, which will be in July. Mayor de Blasio is going to launch it initially. It's going to be a New York City-wide initiative. Then we have Keith Ellison. He is the Democratic representative from Minnesota. He's going to help us launch it in Congress with the 535, hopefully, Congress people present. So it's starting here in New York, and we particularly invite the imams in the room. And if you are a Muslim leader or an imam, if you could please be so kind as to put your name and email and phone number here and the name of your mosque, we would like to invite you to learn more about this. And one last point for the Muslims, we are also, during this time, facing a lot of Muslims leaving the faith. It's very difficult to be a Muslim when you walk down the street and you're a little girl and you have your hijab pulled off, or you're called horrible names, and even teachers, you know, in schools across the country slander you, and nothing happens to those teachers. So it's, you know, this is also a way for Muslims to feel good about ourselves again, empower us with the words and the knowledge about what the true Islam is, and then hopefully what we really want to do is engage with you, our sisters and brothers of all faiths, and bring back New York and our communities to being in a very peaceful and loving place where no one lives in fear and everybody has their human rights.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
So I was going to leave her last, but in line of going with the females, we continue on. You know, every problem, there are solutions. So all the problems we're having, is the solution. So from me. Yeah, so you go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, everyone. I just want to
Thank you all so much for having me. Thank you to Fordham University for all the great work you've been doing. Thank you, Aldo and Imam for having me here today, for inviting me. My name is Rama Isa, and I'm the lead advisor on Arab and Muslim relations at the New York City Commission on Human Rights. The Commission is a civil enforcement agency that seeks to educate the public and encourage positive community relations between all communities in New York. We have one of the most, New York City human rights law has one of the most comprehensive anti-discrimination laws in the country. And we have protections under public accommodation, housing, and employment based on, and I will read this because I do not want to miss any protective class. So race, religion, age, national origin, citizenship status, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, pregnancy, disability, and marital and partnership status. There's additional protections under employment, like arrest or conviction record, status of being a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault or stalking, unemployment status, and credit history. And in May of this year, we also added a new protective class, which is caregivers. I want to stop here for a second because I was having a conversation with my husband on the way here about the employment protections that we have. And I was talking to him how last year the Commission was able to amend the human rights law to include protections under employment that will stop employers from asking whether you have a criminal record in the process of hiring. And I was having this conversation with him, and he was like, "Oh, that's interesting, because yesterday I went to an interview and they asked me for whether I have like a criminal record." And I was like, "No, that's totally illegal. We need to do something about that." So it's just like interesting because so many people don't know about these issues or how robust the New York City human rights law is. And our job basically is to come out to the community and explain to you your rights as New Yorkers, your rights as people who live, work, and just come to New York. So we also have like, the law also prohibits retaliation and discriminatory harassment, as well as bias-based profiling by law enforcement. And this is the part that I really wanted to go into, because with the rise of Islamophobia, unfortunately, with my work that I've been going out to the community, I've heard many stories of, kids experiencing bullying in schools, or like you said, women who are walking on the streets and having their hijabs being pulled out. Discriminatory harassment is that. It's basically a pattern of, or a threatening of verbal harassment or use of force or coercion or defacing or damaging private property, cyberbullying or bullying. All these issues fall under discriminatory harassment, and all of those issues, if you have experienced any of these issues or you know somebody in the community who had experienced any of this, you can call 311 and ask for the New York City Commission on Human Rights. And when you do that, the Commission will have an intake, will listen to, the incident, and they'll really take it seriously, and then they'll start a process. They will bring you into the office, we'll ask you several questions regarding the incident, and then depending of whether there's probable cause or not, the Commission will, take it to court. So this is the kind of information that we want to get out there, especially to the Arab and Muslim communities, This Commissioner Carmelyn Morales, has actually put this as a priority under her leadership, especially enforcing, any kind of harassment based on religion, race, or national origin. The Commission has increased investigations in this area by 63% compared to 2014. And we are working with local Muslim leaders and advocates at mosques. So, imams who are at mosques can identify if there are any cases of discriminatory harassment and then refer the cases to us. And I'm going to skip to step by step, but I will give you the direct info line in case something happens. And if the imams in this room write this down, that would be great, because then they can just call the info line and talk to an attorney automatically, and that's 718-722-3131. We have really been working hard to further engage the Muslim community, especially with all the rhetoric that's been going on in the national campaign, and with the rise of Islamophobia. We've convened several roundtables with local Muslim leaders and advocates, and we really hope that we can continue to do this. And one of the things that the Commission has done is actually hire me. I've been at the Commission for 2 months. So my role is specifically to be working with the Arab and Muslim communities. This is the second time I am in an Iman Center, so in 2 months, so that's good. We just want to keep growing and be that face for the community. I'm here as a resource, so if the community has any issues, if anything is coming up, you can come talk to me. I also have some of my staff members, Belinda, I'm going to call you out. But we have 5 centers all across the city, 1 in each borough, and there's 1 in the Bronx. So if you have any issues in the Bronx, you can contact our center in the Bronx. There's also some materials on the table of the different things that we have been doing. And we've also increased our language access to include Arabic, Hindi, Urdu, and Gujarati, and then we're also translating most of our materials into Bangla, Arabic, and Urdu as well. So just to close this out, I just want you to know, again, for the community, I'm a resource for you. This is what the Commission is here to do, is to hear your complaints and what are the issues and what are the dire needs of the community, what is the community being going through, and how can we and the Commission help you and become partners, collaborate in this work, so that we can really address the issues that are going on in the community and really be able to provide a safe space that is tolerant for all communities in New York, and really make New York City an Islamophobia-free city.
And that's what we have to do in our communities too. We can't just look at a grander place. If we're going to be in a community, we have to grow with the community. We have to also address the community issues as Muslims, in housing, in immigration, in every aspect. This is an example that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have to do it in our own communities ourselves. And we cannot say, oh, this is only because I'm Puerto Rican and I'm not going to work with I'm not going to work with this community, or that I'm African and I'm not going to work with that community, or that I'm this and I'm not going to do that. No. If we're a community, we're community. Unity, I say, my motto is unity is the only solution for our voices to be heard. So we have to unify. We work together. Listen, and I'm a Muslim, I'm going to tell you the truth, I have no problem working with someone with the LGBT community. I have no problem whatsoever. Why? Because they exist in our community, they live in our community, and they need to be represented in every right as any human being. Now, some might disagree with me and say, well, that's not Islamic. Well, you know what, choose? I'm not the qadar. I'm not a judge. I am not their judge. They go before Allah. My personal belief as a Muslim and my theological reasoning, that's how I believe. But that's not my position to judge you. So I really expand, and I really want to expand to everyone here that we're going to grow. But we're going to grow in the peaceful manner that actually was taught to us to do. And there's differences in Islam. There's Sufis, there's Shia, there's many aspects, and there's many other doctrines that they have. And we have to also understand that within those differences that we have to work together, to unite us together, to have a common ground.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I got that from him. That's my brother. I got it from my love. Listen, but honestly, the 30 seconds that he's going to give me right now, I already killed 15.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I would like to thank everyone to come here. I love you all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sincerely, I do. And I want you all to really think about, send this message out to your brothers and sisters in Facebook and anywhere, to your families. And share it in your educational system, because the only way we're going to learn from each other is we educate each other, okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Balde will close, but I think a lot of you have questions, so I don't want to lose out the questions. Therefore, we not let Dr. Balde speak. Let's do the question and answer. Then, after that, Dr. Balde will tie everything into it and then give us a closing prayer. But I just want to acknowledge Latoya, Assemblywoman Latoya sent a representative. Yes. Say a few words, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marie. I work for Assemblywoman Latoya, 77th New York State Assembly District. And we actually have May 28th at Casa Mosque, it's like Townsend Avenue, Mosque Resource Fair. It's open for the entire community, not only Muslims. We'll have people from Moya, the Mayor's Office for Immigration Affairs. If they have any issues, we can provide assistance there. A lot of local organizations are bringing, inshallah, we'll be bringing a lot of services. It's May 28th, and I'll stay in touch with you with the details because we have not confirmed everything yet. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, and we have one of the bosses also behind there, quiet, but she's a big boss. Works with Ms. Ibrahim. Mrs. Ibrahim. So, you want to say a few words?
No, I think Roma did a good job. She said everything. But I just want to reiterate that, people should come out and use the resources that we have at the commission. They're free, and you don't have to worry about, any adverse action, but, come see us because we really want to help and we really want to be more active, in the community.
Good, thank you. So let's do the question and answer, then after that, then we can continue, but I think the question and answer are important.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Nason from Fordham. We're very proud to have been a co-sponsor of this from the Bronx African American History Project. I want to say, first of all, how incredibly moved I am by all of the speakers, by the whole setting here in this section of the Bronx. And a thought came into my mind about how to get this information across. If you have literature that can be easily distributed to people who want to educate themselves about Islam, we can use the Bronx African American History Project seminar room as a distribution point for literature that can get across the kind of message that people need to get. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of students who work with us very closely, and I can get that information to them, who can then get it to campus organizations and student groups, because it's hard to bring speakers to campus, but if you have things that are printed out, which would be really useful for educating people, we will make sure it gets around. So afterwards, make connection with me. I'm around also a lot during the summer. Dr. Edward and I will make sure this information gets to as many students and student leaders as possible. And we pledge ourselves to be a distribution point for information about Islam and interfaith unity. So, you know, come to us after it's over and make the connection where we can play that role.
Thank you.
So any questions? Yeah.
Regarding the 311 complaints, I deal with that on the other side, like people call, complain about housing, heat, hot water. When they call 311, as you know, it deals with all sorts of things. They don't know what to do on who to call. Sometimes they are a little unlucky. The person will not be well trained to handle the issue, so they wouldn't know where to like have to be or how to put it on.
So when you call 311 and you want to file a complaint, you have to say, I just want to speak to the New York City Commission on Human Rights, and they will transfer you. I can also give you the direct line for our info line. It's 718. Yeah, you want to write it down?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be really helpful, like using that this information for you know, constituents when you want to.
Sure.
722-3131.
Yes.
See?
718-722-3131. And then if Belinda wants to give the Bronx Center.
In addition to that, we give trainings every month in all the borough offices. So if anybody here or anybody from your office would like to come hear exactly the type of complaints we deal with, you could come in and see it. What we'll do is, you know, I'll get your contact information, and you know, we'll send out an email with the dates for the Bronx office, which is located at 1932 Arthur Avenue in East Tremont. So we encourage everybody to come out. We have 2 trainings every month. So I think it would be useful.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Jane Kane Edwards. I'm the director of the African Immigration Research in the Bronx. And this is my boss in the project. And we also teach in the same department. So before I ask my question, I just want to add to what he said. You know, some of us actually teaches courses on Africa. And in one of my courses, actually, I have a section on Islam. So I think the material that you'll be bringing to us will help us in our classes as well. We can take it to our classes and share it with our own students in the class. My question to the panelists, and anybody can answer this question because it came up like from 2 presenters, that the Muslim community in America is not an organized community as compared to other communities like the Jewish community. So my question is, what makes it difficult for the Muslim community, for example, to be united? What are some of the factors that create that disunity among the Muslim community?
One second.
You get 5 minutes. You get 2 minutes.
I get 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
No, let Amani.
Okay, mine's
No,
answer
you
it.
go first. You go first.
One of the reasons that we have is actually, and I see it as I worked in a mosque as a community liaison, is actually the difference of opinion, and actually sometimes in actually the way that even one practices the madhab. Madhab is that we have 4 madhabs, which is Hanafi, Hanifi, Shafi, madhab, which is school of thought. It's like the school of thought. It's a different school of thought that divides us sometimes, even in the mosque, even in race, and even in class of actually economic stature.
So, I can.
Yeah. No, there's more reasons, but I'm not gonna go all out today.
So, yeah, I mean, there's ideological differences for sure, theological differences. For me, I see it more as New York City, particularly speaking, has. I'm actually writing a piece for Daisy's book about this. I'm actually writing a section on it. So, I was researching this. So, New York City, the immigrant community in New York City can be viewed in 2 categories, or several categories. But you can view it, just for these purposes, we can view it in 2 categories. First, you can see it as the sort of local indigenous Black African American community, and then you can look at it as the immigrant Muslim community. Now, the problem is in New York City, there are so many immigrants who come in. There's waves of immigrants who are Muslim who come every year. And so as soon as an immigrant Muslim community comes into this country, they're barely trying to get their feet up, and then there's another wave that comes in the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year. And so it's very difficult to really create something because there's really no sort of period where they get a break. Does that make sense? Now there is an established African American community, Muslim Black African American community in Harlem, for example. You guys all know about that, you know, with Malcolm X and the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood and Mosque number 7 and all of that. Those communities are more established. They are more. They tend to be more. They tend to be better in terms of they're more politically sophisticated. For example, with terrorism prosecutions and things like that, you won't see as many of those communities falling into sort of entrapment cases, but you'll see a lot more sort of immigrant people falling into those cases because they just don't know the laws, they don't know their rights. And so I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that New York City just has such a heavy migration, and there's just no institutions. There's no central Muslim institution. So for example, the Jewish community they have so many institutions. They have the Anti-Defamation League. They have so many. But the Anti-Defamation League, they're a very powerful institution. They absorb, because they have a lot of different kinds of Jews as well, right? They have Jews coming from all over the world. They have lots of different ideologies. They have very conservative Jews. They have very liberal Jews. But they have very strong institutions that are able to absorb when there's new migrations. And they don't have a lot of people coming from all around the world anymore. So it's very complicated. And so I would say that that's probably why.
Thank you. Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
There is sadly also a lot of intra-Muslim racism. So, for example, there is an elitism among Arabic-speaking Muslims because Arabic is the language of the Quran, and historically, Arabs have sometimes pushed aside and not been very inclusive with non-Arabic speakers, whether they be Pakistani or African American. And another division would be the Sunni and the Shia, the Sufi. But particularly, there's been sort of a phenomenon since 9/11 where those Muslim communities that are privileged with, they have good economic status, jobs, college education, etc. A lot of these communities have tended to put their nose to the ground and ignore what has been going on systemically, structurally, in terms of racism against their Black Muslim and Latino Muslim brothers and sisters in particular. So I just want to add that on top of everything, we do have intra-Muslim racism, which is something that there are now organizations that are growing, like we have the Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative, which is a national organization that's been around for more than 2 years now that is actively tackling this. We have, Muslims for Ferguson, Muslims for Social Justice. So there is a new wave of Muslim activists who are trying to put an end to this. But also Muslim community members with money and status and privilege need also not to fear so much. There's surveillance of the New York City, the police, and the federal government, because that also keeps people's nose to the ground so they don't want to speak up against injustice. So there's a confluence of things going on.
Any other question? Yeah.
I've heard the theme of growth, and you guys are definitely growing, and you can feel it in the schools. Like Rodriguez, Bronx Education and Justice. One of the things that I'd like to ask and throw out there is,
there is, at least at the talking level, an effort to increase the number of representative variety of different backgrounds culturally, to have more teachers, to have more paras, to have more translators, to have more representation in public schools. I'm an ESL teacher, I teach immigrants, so I will always teach immigrants. They will always be poor, they will always be immigrants, they will always have issues, always, because that's what ESL is. And what I'm noticing is that the established communities of Hispanics have books and resources and people and experts, and that is not there for the newer communities. And that is one of my needs that I really need is I need guidance. We couldn't get dictionaries. It was difficult to get resources out, and hunting in Jackson Heights for people just to bring stuff to the Bronx. And some of our Bangladeshi students and Pakistani students would feel isolated in certain areas, pockets of the Bronx, so there may be 3 of them in the school. And no resources, no way of talking to the parents, and a bit of laziness on the part of the DOE and DOE people to actually call for translators and interpreters. But I would like to see, and I wonder if it could possibly be encouraged, more parents who can become volunteers and to make the presence part of the community through the schools. And the one wonderful thing was winning both Eids off in the school year, which was fabulous. And there's still people pushing for Diwali too. But I would like to have more of the inclusion, and I feel like that is kind of like the target of schools, are where lots of the things are happening. I feel like that's exactly where the bullseye is. The children, the negativity and that type of thing. I'm wondering if there's any effort to try to bring in more people so that we can actually have a faith and not a scary image, and also have services for parents with people who are culturally competent, because we don't have that. We don't have enough, and as it grows in the Bronx, we don't have the resources that our already established communities in Queens have, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that would probably make a lot of difference when it comes to bullying, when it comes to parents feeling like they are kind of disinvited in the school environment, or feeling targeted in some ways, and then also allowing others to learn, and pushing back a little bit against these curriculum things that kind of isolate new communities so they can never learn about themselves, and no one can ever learn about them, because it's always this narrow curriculum. So I'm wondering if you guys have heard of any of that effort, or if you think that should be a good method.
Listen, I'm sorry, but I'm everywhere. One of the problems that we have in our public school system is that systematically principals have been working very long with PTA boards when it comes to parents in schools. Now, the problem that we're having is that these PTAs, they feel like some of them feel that they have titles, and that title that they have, they want to keep them forever. Okay? So when these new immigrant communities come into the schools, guess what? They're not giving them an opportunity, and they're not giving them a voice. I know that for a fact. You know that for a fact. I work, your teachers, you know that for a fact. And even the teachers, when they speak out, they actually get booted out. They get sent out. These actions are not being spoken out publicly because it affects the political structure that they have. And I'm very sadly to say, and this is not to nitpick at anybody, but a lot of our elected officials have not been really strong when the actual teachers have gone to their offices and spoken to them about the problems happening. Why? Because they don't want to deal with the unions. Honestly, we're having an epidemic that is not only for one of those, like I said before, one of the largest growing population of actually students growing in New York City right now are the Bangladeshi community. Why is there not an ESL Bengali classes? Why isn't there not?
Because we need the teachers.
Okay, but let me ask you, there are teachers who are qualified. She's a teacher right there. But you see, the thing is that the opportunities in the school systems do not want to angle the budget to a certain.
I'll jump in on this.
Can you find out what are your responses? Yeah.
Well, the 2010 census determined that the Bronx was the 5th most impoverished area in the country.
62 in the nation. The worst. The worst.
So, and we also know that the education system, No Child Left Behind, as it's called, the race to the top, penalizes the poor. So that the schools that need the most in terms of educational resources and funding actually end up getting the least and having more taken away. So short of a systemic overhaul of the education system, what we're forced to do is rely on our communities, right? Yeah, because it's not coming from the government at this time. So and this is required not just with education, but across the board with whatever justice issue. That it's the people that are in the trenches, on the front lines, on the ground, whether it's Ferguson, Missouri, or wherever it is, wherever people are in need, they need to solve their own problems because the nonprofit industrial complex and the system is not meeting their needs. So in that regard, when it comes to translation, I mean, we don't, this program, WISE in Today's Islam, it can help in one sector, and that is at least providing an anti-Islamophobia curriculum. And we are actually working with ICRA Foundation, which is one of the largest Islamic curriculum producing companies in the world, to make a curriculum. So this is something that we want to make accessible to you eventually for free. So it should be great. Yeah, and it will be all ages. And it'll help the teachers, it'll help the parents.
If we are allowed to teach it.
Exactly.
There's the problem.
Religion can be taught if
it's not that, it's the Common Core.
You have to go through a whole curriculum. I'm a former principal, so it would need to be an extracurricular.
Exactly.
There's no time for except the test prep for anything extracurricular.
That's right.
But here's the thing that I want to point out. I really need, as an ESL teacher, the community to rise up and say we value language, and we want to see Arabic dual language. We want to see Bengali dual language. We want to see Urdu dual language. But the law says there has to be 20 kids identified as L's who request a dual language or transitional bilingual program. And if they don't request it, it will not be built. It was requested by the Puerto Rican community back in the day through Aspira. That's how we got the laws. It was requested by the Chinese community, and those things are established. But those programs get eroded because the political will is not there. So they lose their credibility, and they lose, the shine goes off of them. But I think it's super valuable for those teenagers who come in now or in my classes to become teachers in the future. So it would be great to have more programs to grow our own. And that's what I would like to say.
So we have two more questions because it's after 6. We have two more questions.
I don't know if you know about Daisy's Rising already. They're an amazing
One
organizing.
other quick point: there have been municipal districts like Seattle and others that have overturned the high stakes testing. So if there's enough of a coalition building, it's possible.
Yeah, it's a law. We're on it. You wouldn't believe how we're on it.
Okay.
All right, two more questions. Any questions? All right, so then what we can do now, then so since you're among the misses we have, but so we don't know who you are, and you have a beautiful, what is it, tiara? Beautiful tiara, so we just need to learn more about you. Can you say something before we?
Your platform.
Yeah.
Your platform.
Absolutely.
That's right.
By the way, this is the first time we see a Muslim miss something.
Miss something.
We are Arab, but not.
Hello everybody, my name is Shamsun Elite, and I'm a professor of mathematics at Fordham University. Actually adjunct professor, I'm not full professor yet, but yeah, since we just used to say professor, so yeah, and this is my title. I won this title this year, Miss North East America from Miss America pageant. You can see Miss America 2016. So I'm competing Miss America in September all over the country. In California, My platform is since I'm a teacher, so I wanted to work for young kids, especially education. I would like to work, motivate young kids to stay in school because lots of kids drop out of school. So I'd like to go and talk to them, motivate them so that they don't drop out of school, make sure to stay in school because education is one of the most important for the society, country, nation. So that's all about it. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for organizing this nice event. And as a Muslim, I would just like to add one more sentence that read and learn about Muslim Islam, because Islam is not a terrorism. Islam is against terrorism. I believe personally, as a Muslim, as a human being, peace and love. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing that talked about the clothes, one thing, okay.
I don't know how many of you heard this, but this week the Islamic State put out a hit list for 12 Muslims, 9 from the United States and 2 from Britain and 1 from Canada, I believe. Now, this did not make the New York Times. And one of them is Congressman Keith Ellison, representative from Minnesota.
Wow.
Now, if a congressman's life is threatened globally, you'd think that would make it to at least page 2. But what this is a testimony. First of all, it's horrible, it's horrific. But I bring it up not to scare anyone, but to show you that we Muslims at this table are all on the same page with you. This Islamic State is our enemy. Not that we don't want enemies, but we refuse. We don't want to be victimized by them, nor do you. And we want, because they claim our faith. We are extremely motivated to debunk what they're saying and get rid of them in the most peaceful way possible, bringing down no innocent lives. So that's one. And 2, just to let you know that these people are, the fact that the Muslims like Keith Ellison were not in the paper also shows you that Muslim lives don't matter.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
just in terms of that, very few Americans know that, in fact, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda or whichever one of the groups that call themselves Muslim, that most of their victims are in fact Muslims. Very few Americans know that.
95%.
And again, part of the reason they don't know it is that neither the Daily News and the Post, on one hand, the openly right-wing newspapers, or the New York Times and the Washington Post, they pretend to be progressive newspapers. Some of you may remember the term, all the news that, it says all the news we print, all the news that fits is in fact what the New York Times writes. And very few, and that's what Americans see and believe, and it's important. And again, I think that's one thing that for those of us who happen not to be Muslim, is one of our most crucial things to do, is to be sure that other non-Muslim Americans know this. I know I have done this somewhat, not so much with Muslim in general, but specifically in terms of Palestinians, where I have given little presentations to friends and Christians who, because I think it's important.
all right. So now we're going to have a closing remarks from Dr. Balde. But I just wanna bring you home, because since we're in the Boogie Down Bronx, let's bring you home. I want you to look at Muslims. How do you identify Muslims? Miss America? Or we have African lawyer? Or we have hijabi wearing former principal? Or we have one from the Human Rights Commissioner. Muslims come from all shapes and craziness.
Yeah.
So, you cannot just tunnel vision one being and say this is the representation of Muslims. These are all different Muslims. So, and we are proud of the diversity, because you see in the Holy Book it says diversity is by default, not only default but by divine default. If it was God's will, we all look alike, we all like the same thing, we all dress alike, we all speak alike. But it is by divine default that we are diverse. So with the diversity, then you have a beautiful soup. Yeah. Otherwise, you only have soup with onions. Yeah, or tomatoes. But now you have all kinds of, even we have Puerto Rican Muslims. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that?
Yeah. I just thought of something. Yeah. We have this slogan in the movement, this is what democracy looks like when you have a diverse group. Yeah. I'd like to get all the panelists together for a picture and says, this is what Islam looks like. Beautiful. And it would be an incredibly powerful picture that you could turn into a poster.
After we finish,
this is what Islam looks like.
Now 1 second. After we finish, we do it. But before I forget, we've been joined by one of our assembly members. Yeah. By the way, one thing about the assemblyman is that you better make sure you say the right thing, because everything you said is recorded. Yeah, and he was the former county chairperson. So we have a giant among us. So we're happy to have you here. So with that, I want this this part of the program to end with Dr. Balde. But I just want to also announce that after this program ends, we're also going to begin another program, because every month, the third Friday of every month, we have a Peacemakers Dinner, where we bring people from all walks of life and all backgrounds to come and eat together and really share the love. And so after we finish here, if you want to stay, we have more food and coming. You can enjoy it. We're here. If you have to leave, then we
have iced tea right now. The cups are there, and it's really good.
Yeah, iced tea, real iced tea, not iced tea the person. Yeah. So with that, Dr. Balde, not only is he Muslim, not only is he Imam, but he is a physician. He's a doctor, medical doctor, and I'm sure his wife doesn't believe it, but he's a medical doctor. And Dr. Balde has been working with the Department of Health, for the longest, and unfortunately, disaster after disaster after disaster, the system needs elements that can go with it. And Dr. Balde handles that, whether it is Ebola or whether it is the, many different disasters. They rely on Dr. Balde to facilitate it. So with that, and he's also the chairperson for the Interfaith Subcommittee at the Borough President's Office. He deals with Muslims and non-Muslims. And so Dr. Abdullah Balde.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When you say assalamu alaikum to somebody in Islam way, that means don't worry about this guy. Nothing bad gonna come to you from this guy, because he's addressed you by salah, peace on you. Me, I'm with you in peace. That's why I say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Very happy, an honor to be here, to see you all. This subject, Islamophobia, let me ask you a question. You worry about something you don't know. If I know him, why am I worried about him? But if you don't know me, I'm inside here, and the news telling bad guy inside, you all gonna worry. Because you don't know I'm coming out with what. So Islam, only bad things, news showing. in every community, in every religion, is good people, bad people. There's no doubt about that. I'm part of, since 9/11, we have what we call NIRIS. What does it mean? New York Disaster Interference Services. Let's make all of faith in Lower Manhattan together in one team in order to try to heal this problem, because at this time Muslim was very worried themselves, because you see what happened and you say Muslim did it, and you know you're Muslim. So you have to get help from the other faith to get out, say, listen, even Muslim did that, but there's no Muslim living in America. Okay, but don't feel that. Maybe somebody from somewhere else. But was working together, explain to people what's going on, try to heal it. Bad things, some good things come out of it. Try to know Islam, some people read the book, some people becoming Muslim. Let me tell you, this Islam is the way of life, sent down by God Almighty. Don't judge the system by the people living in the system. You take the book, you read it, you're going to be more Muslim than myself. Because maybe what you're going to see inside, you're going to believe. Islam never told somebody go to kill someone. In verse in Quran, it says, if you save the life of one human being, look like if you save all world. If you kill one soul from human being, look like you kill all world. How people claim to be Muslim and get out, kill innocent people? That means they don't know that. They are not. No religion tell go to kill. No. You go to church, they never tell you that. You go to synagogue, they never tell you that. You go to mosque, no. So as the Imam said, let's get knowledge. The most enemy of human being is lack of knowledge. You don't know, very bad. Try to know something. What makes difference between human being and animals? Only three things. Intellect. We do all together. You life, same thing, but you have intellect, knowledge, power. When you get knowledge, you have to understand what to study for, and then you put in action. Power, different from animal. But eat, sleep, having life, animal does it too. But human being have this intellect. A God, what he said for human being is different. Give you intellect, they tell you to choose your way of life. Whatever you want. Islam is a little bit different, because when you say you submit to God, God's gonna tell you, don't. The don't is more than do. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. That's why a lot of people say, I'm not going to Islam. You see, very pretty girl outside there. In all you may like that, but Islam said, don't go near. It's not for you. Don't touch it. I like to smoke, I like to drink. No, Islam said, no, don't do that. To be Muslim the first word you have to pronounce word and do action. The first word you say, La ilaha illallah. There's no God to be worshipped except. You see, you start by negation. La ilaha illallah. So, phobia, Islamophobia, in America right now is different according to the location of everyone. Because dressing like this, going outside, gonna say maybe I'm Muslim or not. But like my sister go outside right now, they right away gonna identify her as Muslim. So Muslim is no need for non-Muslim to feel Muslim, because Muslim, if you do know your Islam, you never do bad things to human beings, yes. Even animals.
Yes.
All Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before they give him, all the prophet, before they give them the prophecy, they tell them, go to take care of the sheep, animals. We're going to find out how you deal with animals. If you're merciful with animals, of course you're going to be merciful with human beings. That's why they start from. After that, Allah look them, say, okay, I send you to these people, particular people, every prophet, except the last prophet, because God is not going to send anyone anymore. Say, this one is the last for all human beings. Okay, so 1 minute I have left. I always want to cut before my time. I ask Almighty to make us all understand Islam.
Amen. Yeah, amen.
All people
yes.
who are in, please take books, read it. Islamic book, read it. Don't listen to me, don't listen to anybody. Read it yourself. And don't go fast. Little by little, little by little, and you understand. And then go from there. May God Almighty bless us all.
Amen.
He is the owner of the heaven, earth, everything between, no beginning, no end. He's the one who can do everything he wants. Barakallahu fiik. Subhanakallah wa bihamdi. Asadu an la ilaha wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayh. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, now we're going to end this.